movement of the players and the colors, and it was just like watching an actual painting. I mean, it was such a part of my life for so long, from the age of 7 years old till probably about 30.
Welcome, and this is Artwaves. I'm Wendy Butler, and my guest tonight is Robert Hattan, a Ferndale resident whose monoprints are another facet of his lifelong passion, baseball.
In our sundown perambulations of late, through the outer parts of Brooklyn, we have observed several parties of youngsters playing base, a certain game of ball. Let us go forth a while and get better air in our lungs. Let us leave our close rooms. The game of ball is glorious. Walt Whitman.
Robert Hattan's monoprints at Piante Gallery in Eureka through June 27th are strikingly colorful, but more than that, you can hear them. Hear the stadium, the shouts, the crack of the bat. Robert knows the sound well. A Bay Area native, now living in Ferndale, he only wanted to do one thing with his life, play baseball. And he did. In a number of minor league teams in the 1950s and 1960s, including those of the Philadelphia Phillies. Though he didn't seriously pursue visual art really until he was released from the Phillies, it was always with him. Now, his drawings and his monoprints, not exclusively baseball, but ripe with it. The components: field, player, fan, anticipation, a rich part of the sports spirit. Here's a Robert Hattan. Did you see a lot of baseball games?
Oh, yes.
Like, for instance...
Mostly the Pacific Coast League when I was a kid. It was the Seals, San Francisco Seals. That was my first experience with professional baseball. Portland, Seattle, San Diego, and Los Angeles, they were all in this Pacific Coast League, and it was a AAA league, and it was just next to the major leagues, just the next level below. So you saw players that had been to the big leagues and players who were maybe going to the big league. So that was my experience, was with the minor league teams.
Well, you're interested in art. In, you know, not necessarily specifically monoprints, but visual art. You were seeing, enjoying baseball games. Were you also experimenting with drawing, painting?
I probably started drawing when around the age of 12. That's mostly I remember. Well, yeah, but as a kid you're drawing, but I mean seriously, when I was really trying to do proportion, and I started drawing from baseball cards. You know, and they came out pretty horrible, but that was my first experience with trying to do any kind of baseball stuff, you know.
Did you also draw other things? Other
subjects? I tried to draw horses, and the Golden Gate Bridge, I remember, was a big project in class.
Is it? Yeah. Was that an assignment?
Yeah.
Must draw this bridge?
Yeah, it was like...
Did you go out on the bridge? And
no, but just from our memories and things in school. I've always seen other kids, like, I knew a kid that carved, and what he did, and I thought it was fascinating. I've always been impressed with that kind of expression. Even though I think I was capable of it, I would attempt to do things, you know, draw, but it wasn't as satisfactory to me as what I saw from other people I was really impressed with.
How about the baseball? Wanting to do that. I'm sure there's a different emotion, something else, you know, different driving you. You want to get on the field, you want to do that.
I think it came from my father mostly, playing baseball at all.
Did you? How so? Did he?
Well, I remember when Babe Ruth was actually visiting San Francisco. And we didn't go out to see him, but he was like essentially saying farewell. He was dying. And Babe Ruth was, I could hear it in my father's voice. Babe Ruth was like something, just like a god or something.
There's the windup. Here's a pitch. It's a slow curve low, and the Babe swings. It's a long one going out toward right center. Stingler's backing up against the wall. He can't get it. It's in there. Another home run for the Bambino. So the Babe hits his second homer of the day.
I just remember being very impressed with that, and I think that's what, the fact that he was so impressed with that, I think that's when I started, I picked up on that. I think you relate to what your parents are interested in a lot, you know, I don't know, it's like to get a kind of acceptance or something and really get their attention. I think that's what stirred me on to, in the first place, to just be interested in baseball. And I knew he was interested in that. He worked in a cigar magazine place, and he'd bring baseball magazines home and stuff. So we had a lot of the kind of an influence in that way.
Your position was in outfield?
Yeah.
Was that from the very first, or did you?
Well, yeah, I chose the outfield because I remember going out for a team in the 6th grade, and nobody ran out to this particular position. It was center field. So I said, well, maybe I have my best chance of making a team by taking that position. And I ran out there. I had no other idea other than I wanted to be on the team. And it looked like nobody wanted that position, so I'd get it.
So when you were saying 6th grade, that sounds like you were around 12 years old at that time as well.
That's the first organized team I ever was on.
So that's interesting that, you know, not to establish a connection where there may be none, but you said that you remember one of your earliest memories of drawing was when you were 12.
Yeah.
As well.
Right.
And so in tandem, you know, there was a...
It does work out that way, yeah.
I don't know if I asked you this. Did your father play baseball
No.
in any company teams?
As a kid, but not really.
Now, we're moving on a little bit into your teenage years, going toward, you know, getting ready to graduate from high school. At that time, you're playing in baseball on teams.
Yeah.
Yes. And you're also drawing?
No.
Not really.
Not really.
That was...
No.
Did you... And and if anybody asks me this, I still don't know what to tell them. Did you have an idea of what you wanted to be, what you wanted to do?
The only thing I ever
At
wanted
that
to do
time.
was be a baseball player.
Really?
Yeah. I remember my counselor asked me that. I wasn't doing that well in school.
She's going, you must study.
And she says...
You never amount to anything.
And she finally just said, Bob, what do you really want to do? And I said, well, I want to be a baseball player. And she said, well, that's good. You know, she was kind of concerned. She says, are you playing on the high school team? And I said, well, I'm on the high school team. I wasn't playing.
Especially in the outfield. What were you doing?
Mostly using the back. I was one of the guys who had to move the backstop off the outfield grass before the game started. I was mostly second string, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was that
all through high school? Actually.
Was that out of choice or just?
Oh no, I wanted
competition?
to play. Yeah, competition.
That.
I wasn't really that good.
But it's what you wanted to do.
That's what I wanted to do.
That's marvelous. Why did you want to do that?
I just didn't. I don't know why I narrowed my options so much. You know, I just wasn't prepared to do anything else.
This is Artwaves, and I'm Wendy Butler. I visited Robert Hattan last week in his Ferndale home. We talked about baseball, his vocation for a number of years, and now his primary subject in his visual arts. His monoprints are on display through June 27th at the Piante Gallery in Eureka. Extremely poignant is this person's take on the life of a baseball player going from team to team in the minors. Here's more with Robert about his baseball journey.
I mean, I really didn't have to go about it, and then what happened best with me is it's funny how you get established locally. Like, I was always like a second-string ball player, and I was always treated like a second-class citizen in a sense by your community. You know, the baseball community, the sports community. It's like you never can break out of that little niche that you were placed in. And so when I got on this team in San Francisco, this is in Redwood City where I grew up in a lot of my teen years, which is like 27 miles south of San Francisco. Well, I went and played in San Francisco. I got on this team, and immediately I was like a personality. Like,
What team did you get on?
it was just some amateur team, you know, that was in this big, they had a lot of leagues in San Francisco, on a Saturday, Sunday leagues and things. And so I got on this team, and the guy just immediately responded to me. And I was like, I just became a good ball player like overnight or something.
You mean you got better at what you were
It
doing?
seemed like I was like, this respect that I got changed me
It did.
immediately. And then he says, well,
What did you do that was better, would you say?
I think I just got an opportunity to play and get away from the stigma of, I think there's a real stigma about that you carry with you when you're not one of the best players, or, you know, I see that in any community, with other kids even, and with my own kid, my own son. He followed the same route I did. But when he quit baseball, he's smarter, and he went to college, and, you know, he has other ideas besides sports.
What's he doing?
He's into environmental studies at Santa Barbara right now. His third year.
So you were on that league in San Francisco, and then how did, and still at that time you really weren't looking at the visual arts.
No, not at all.
But you found your way to Philadelphia. How did all that happen?
Well, in San Francisco, it seems like what happened is, as I played when I was 17, 18, 19, there's a lot of scouts, baseball scouts in San Francisco, which I never even realized until I got there that that's who they, you know, that's how you get it. That's how it happens to you, that they start looking at you, and then they start thinking your potential. And that's eventually what happened. After about 2 years, I was approached by a scout, and he asked me if I wanted to play baseball professionally. I said, well, yeah. And then he proposed a bonus at that time of getting it was very moderate amount of money, and I was even impressed that he would offer me some money, you know. So that's how I signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. And the man that signed me was a man named Dolph Camilli, who was, to my father, was like also kind of a very, wouldn't say an icon, but he was a guy from Brooklyn. He was a kind of a hero in that New York area, which is where my father was from. And so, like, it was just like this wonderful happening to me and him and everything. It was just the family, you know. And to meet this man also, and this man being interested in being, and that I was good enough to sign. So that's what happened.
And about what year was that?
I got signed in 1959.
And you were out of high school?
Already 2 years.
Graduated from high school. You weren't in college?
No. Yes, I was. I'm sorry.
What?
I was in junior college.
Junior college.
Yeah.
And so you were signed with the Phillies in the minor leagues?
Yes, I was assigned to a minor league team.
And what happened then?
Well, I was signed in the middle of the year, so they assigned me to a team in Bakersfield, which was in the California League. It's a C League. And which was kind of interesting because I went to this team thinking I was on a team. But what it really meant was that I was not even, I was on the team, but not on their roster. As meaning I could work out with them. And, and of course they had too many guys on their roster. They could only put 21 players, so they oversigned players, actually. So you worked out with them and played with them, and then when game time came on, you sat in the stands and watched the game. And that went on for about a month.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was sent to another league, which was called the Rookie League, and it was in Johnson City, Tennessee, and that's where I started to play. And then no sooner did I get to play than I broke my ankle, sliding into the base. So that was sort of the it for 1 year. You know, it was kind of a half a year gone already, but and I finished the year. And then I went to spring training in 1960, and I did really well in spring training. And then I went to Tampa, which was one of their. It was a D league, but it was like a very good league.
That was before they founded the Tampa Bay Devil Rays.
Yes.
That was a big controversy when I was growing up there, whether they should start
Oh, is that right?
a baseball team. Yeah, that was, I guess, well, I had already grown up. It was the late 80s, early 90s.
Are you from Tampa?
Yeah.
Really? How amazing. How coincidental. It's amazing. Yeah, and it was like, that was one of the best attendance there. I mean, it was like a big city.
How long were you there?
Just for 1960, the season of 1960.
Yeah. And then on to somewhere else.
Yeah, well, I didn't really, I got released the next year, actually. I got released to spring training. So I really had only like a year and a month of professional experience. And I was like just brokenhearted. I mean, I didn't know what to do, really. I was really at a loss.
Well, that was quite a while ago. What did you do?
Well, I went back to school, but I didn't really know what I was doing. But well, that's when I started taking some art courses, actually.
You found Artwaves. I'm Wendy Butler. Last week I visited with Robert Hattan in his Ferndale home. Baseball is life's passion. As a fan and as a minor league player, who, as the 1950s met the 1960s, found Robert signed with the Philadelphia Phillies minor league teams. Perhaps visual art, drawing, wasn't an overt drive for Robert, but it took up where baseball left off, and it is a way he revisits, and I think enhances, an experience dear to him. His baseball monoprints are at Piante in Eureka through June 27th. Here's Robert with more about how surprised he was to be thought of as an artist.
I remember these classes I took, and I had a particular instructor who really responded to my work, and I honestly thought when he was talking to me that he was talking about somebody else's work. And I said, well, I don't. Are you sure you know what you're talking about? I mean, my work is, and I described these trees that I did and stuff. And he said, yes, definitely, wonderful. And I thought, I can't believe it.
Well, and did your parents obviously?
No, they had nothing to do with art or anything.
Did they? But they knew
sorry.
you were pursuing it, obviously.
I don't really know what I think they were. I think they just gave me time to try to find my way. They kind of let me go to school and not insisted I go to work. And I think they were kind of in sympathy for me because they knew I was in love with baseball and I wanted to be a baseball player. And I was really still pursuing to get signed again because that did happen to a lot of players.
Yeah.
You know, get another contract and get another opportunity. And which eventually did happen, actually.
It did?
Yeah, with the, it was the California Angels, I think they call it, or Los Angeles Angels. I mean, it was another name to the team at the time. I think the California now was, you know, and they were a new organization. They were one of those expansion teams. And they were looking for ball players. And they found me. They were like what they call expansion, though. They added teams to the league.
Okay.
And they were in the American League.
Okay.
And still are. And it's called the California Angels. But I got signed, and I went to spring training. I did very well, but I got released. And I never understood it. I mean, I thought, geez, what can I do? You know, I did pretty well down here. So I was kind of broken hearted a little bit, but not as much. You know, I was growing up a little bit now. I was 23. So.
Ancient.
Yeah, I felt ancient. It's amazing how you do feel old in that sport, you know,
Yeah.
very quickly.
Yeah. What did you develop professionally in your life in the past 30 or so years?
What did I?
Did you go back into baseball at all, or did you?
No, I eventually got a job on different jobs. I had a bunch of different jobs, you know, really nothing from Railway Express and, you know, a lot of driving truck jobs and that's eventually what I did. Most of my life was just Teamster work, Teamster jobs. Got into films as a driver. Because a lot of films I made in San Francisco. That seemed more bearable because it was you'd work 2 weeks and it would end. Maybe you'd work 3 months and then it would end. It was like that type of job. So you always had some time in between to pursue something else. And then I started drawing more then, because I had some art classes, and though I didn't pursue it at school anymore, I pursued it on my own. And I just essentially sketched and drew, and, you know, it intensified eventually.
How did monoprints? How and why did you begin monoprints?
I learned a very primitive form of it in a class, and I liked the printmaking process. And then when I was up here, living up here, I saw a monoprint class. I didn't know what it was. I really wasn't very familiar with it.
What class was that?
It was by Fred
Schwab.
Fred Schwab.
At the Ink People.
Right.
Yeah. Now, what scene is this of? What team is this we're looking at on this
It's just a
piece of paper?
It's just no team. It's just
The idea of a team.
yeah. It's
team.
just any team, every team.
Because I know that
It's a Sandlot group. It's like where I played when I was a kid, actually. It's because it's not major leagues or even minor leagues. It's just they don't have field like this. It's like it actually looks like Oregon Park or something, where they have teams play. It's just amateurs. That's most of the time. Just the general.
Now, you've been in other group shows, you said.
Yeah.
Now, in those others, did you do monoprints?
That's all I've done. Yeah.
And were those monoprints baseball?
Yes.
They were?
Yeah.
Your interest in doing baseball
Why am I doing it,
with your art, yeah.
Well,
With your colors.
I think it's a form of reliving that whole experience a little bit. I mean, it seems to give me a lot of a joy or something when I'm doing it. I've done other you know, like I've done city scenes and things, and I enjoy drawing, but this seems to give me something extra. I don't know, it is kind of reliving youth.
We're looking at a picture now. It's a on-deck circle.
Yeah.
And where is this taken from, or is this a purely imagination?
Well, part of it is the actual picture of someone. There is a small photograph I took the figure from, and he is waiting in an on-deck circle. The whole stadium part is just another, from another photo, actually. So I added 2 pictures. This is actually from a photograph of Joe DiMaggio. And this is actually a photograph of some 1910 circa stadium, you know, when early baseball days. So I kind of combined the 2 and then made it less, I don't know, there's something about the old, the size of the stadiums or something, the familiarity of them, the personalness of them. You know, I don't like the big stadiums. It doesn't appeal to me for some reason. I'm not sure what it is, but
It sounds like sometimes you draw with the inspired by, or you draw from a collage of photographs or different photographs, and then sometimes, like for instance, the Sandlot image. That was something you remembered, you recalled. Yeah. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Of Of the pieces in the show now, what one are you closest to? Or, well, let's just start with that. Closest to. I mean, yeah, you're close to all of it, but I mean, what really gets you?
I don't know, it's just more of like an intrinsic type thing. It's just a feeling, a sense of time or something. An element of time about them. It's something quiet, and yet just on the verge of some action. Just that element of expectance, and yet it's still not quite there. You know, just I don't know. Just I think that's what really stirs me. Just the subtlety. Does that make sense?
That can be found in just the place itself, without people in it.
Yeah.
It could. Maybe an image of a stadium with a bat on the ground or something like that. And I definitely know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's part of the reason why this has been so much of your life. Most of your life, baseball.
And it is, I think it is, I do think it's very much connected with my father for some reason, because he was a very reclusive man. He wasn't a guy who let you know much about him or his life, or he wasn't a storyteller. He was just the hard man to find out who he was. You know, and it was like you did everything you could to draw him out or find out. If you found out something about him, you wanted to be part of it, so you made yourself a part of it by being a baseball player or being a part of that life. And at least that's what I did. I'm quite sure I did that. I don't even know if I like baseball. Sometimes you just feel saturated by the imagery. You just want to get away from it. You think, there's got to be more to it than this. I mean, you know, it's kind of reliving, in a sense, the same. I mean, it's like maybe it's almost like you have to get out of your childhood. You know, you can't be always there. It is a form of that, I think, of not quite growing up.